When the Genesis brand spun off from Hyundai as its own luxury arm, it knew it needed some seriously good product to compete with established marques like Audi, BMW, and Mercedes. Enter this guy, the G70. Their smallest sedan competes right up against cars like the C-Class, Audi A4, and the BMW 3 Series. Can it do it? That's what we're going to check out today. Genesis has sent us the lower 2.0 turbocharged model with the rarefied 6-speed manual transmission. This baby is a unicorn. Let's see what it's all about. So let's start by taking a look on the outside of the G70, where I think this car is an absolute stunner. You've got these thin LED headlights up here. I think it kind of looks like a slippery fish. We've got this nice chrome grille here, nice and large. We've got this nice Siberian ice color. It's sort of like a flat, almost like Audi's Suzuka Gray that they used to offer. Very pretty color here. Because we have the manual transmission model, we automatically get these nicer 19-inch wheels, and if you look behind those wheels, you get Brembo brakes. That's a nice touch as well. Coming around the back, we've got a limited slip differential back here. Again, that's part of that manual transmission model that we have been sent here. Around the back, I really enjoy the styling of the G70. I think that these taillights remind me a lot of an old school BMW, specifically the 1 Series. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I really see a lot of 1 Series coupe back here. You do get a little bit more aggressive fascia here with this manual transmission model, but I am a little bit disappointed that the exhaust only comes out of one side. So now that we've checked out the stylish exterior of the G70, let's come inside, where the interior is very nice. I don't know if I would necessarily call it luxury. It's more of premium. We've got very nice materials in here. I've got this very nice thin leather wrapped steering wheel with a little bit of perforation. I love how this steering wheel fits in hand. We've also got some nice stitched leather here on the dash. The controls are knurled, but they're not metal. They're definitely plastic. So you do have that nice knurled finish, but they don't have the most premium feel to them. I really kind of feel like the G70 is still stuck in this in-between place between a Hyundai and then the nicer Genesis models we've seen on the G90 that I reviewed a couple weeks ago, and the G80 and GV80 that have been released recently. Those have gorgeous cabins with amazing quality materials, and the G70 definitely feels just a little bit behind those, and no more is that felt than right here with the infotainment system. It's definitely small compared to other vehicles in this segment. If you hop into, say, a BMW 3 Series, you're going to be met with a much larger screen. It's all touch. There's no rotating knob or anything to control it with. Now, the screen might be a little bit small, but I will say it still functions great. It's very easy to use, very intuitive, no problems there. Android on Auto and Apple CarPlay are there as standard, but it does look very similar to what you'd find in a Hyundai or a Kia model. Of course, Hyundai and Kia own Genesis, so there's no surprise there. I won't fault them too bad though, because this system does at least work pretty well. We have some other nice materials here. We have this sort of aluminum finish. It's not real aluminum, but it does at least look very premium as well. The layout in here is great. We have our 6-speed manual. I said we've got one of these manual transmissions, which means we have a manual hand lever here for the parking brake instead of a digital one like you'd get in an automatic G70. Genesis knew that manual owners would prefer having one of these. We have our drive mode selector here with our traction control button. bottom, and up front we have a sliding storage area where our USB is housed, and it does go pretty deep as well, so you can fit some big items and a phone in there with no issues whatsoever. There are a couple of other things that date the cabin just a little bit. We have analog gauges, which I think they look very clear and concise, and there's a nicely sized helper screen there in the middle, but compared to some of the digital gauges that you'll find in competitors in this segment, this just looks just a little bit simple, and the whole car in fact just looks a little bit more premium than luxury. You can make it a little bit nicer if you opt for the 3.3, the V6 trim. You can get some quilted leather seats that really add a touch of elegance here. So the interior, not the Genesis's high point, nor are the back seats. Back here, legroom is kind of at a premium. I've only got 34.8 inches of legroom here. My feet are real tight underneath this passenger seat here, and there's no rear air back here. That's kind of stupid in a luxury car. I wish that Genesis would have put some air vents back here. I do at least have a USB port to charge my devices. So coming back to the trunk, I wanted to show you the Genesis Smart Trunk feature. So if you just stand back here with the key in your pocket close enough, it'll beep a couple of times before then opening up the trunk. I really like this solution more than the ones where you have to wave your foot back and forth like an idiot. So that's really smart on Genesis's part, but they didn't pay that much attention to trunk space on this model. Only 10.5 cubic feet of storage back here. That is smaller than competitors like the BMW 3 Series, although of course you can fold down the seats and get a little bit more storage space that way. Now I will tell you that we've seen spy shots of a wagon variant of the G70. We don't know if it's coming to the US, but if you need more storage space, that could be the model for you. All right, so let's get the Genesis G70 out on the road, because this is a sport sedan after all. So one of the reasons why you're gonna buy this is how it drives. And in that respect, you are not going to be disappointed by the G70. The balance of this car is flawless. It's so neutral with its handling. This car was engineered by Albert Biermann. He's the same guy who used to run BMW's M division. So if you ever hear a journalist like me saying that BMWs don't drive how they used to, this is what we're talking about. This G70 is exactly what we're talking about how BMWs used to feel. The steering, I think with the maybe possible exception of the Alfa Romeo Giulia, is the most accurate in this compact luxury sedan class. It's so nicely balanced. It's not too heavy like a modern BMW. It's the right weight, but I can really place the car. The suspension on this car leans in just a little bit. You want a little bit of suspension lean. You don't want a car to be too flat. You want it to lean in a little bit and play with you when you go throughout the corners. When I go and bring it in, it's gonna lean a little bit, and it really communicates with me as I drive it around. If I put it in its sport mode, the steering weights up a little bit. I sometimes find that when the steering gets heavier, it's a little bit more of a gimmick, but don't feel that way in this car. It's just a nice weight on either mode. Get that suspension leaning in. I've got a nicely bolstered seat here keeping me in, and I can place this car so beautifully around a turn. I absolutely love it. Now you may have noticed I have been rowing my own gears here on this 6-speed manual transmission. We've got the base engine, a 2-liter 4-cylinder. It produces 252 horsepower, or if you get the manual, you get a bump of 3 to 255, 260 pound-feet of torque regardless. Now with the manual transmission, you're gonna get from 0 to 60 in the low 6-second range, which is really not all that quick. You're gonna go much quicker with the optional twin-turbo V6, which is automatic only. 365 horsepower in that one. That goes from 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. So let's see how the G70 with its low 6-second 0 to 60 feels on a launch. Now, this transmission is not my favorite, and we're about to find out why. All right, launch it. Going smooth. Into second. Couldn't get that smooth. See if I can quick shift it. There we go. All right, so pretty brisk acceleration there, and I had to very carefully go from first to second. It really doesn't like to be power shifted into second, and that's because Hyundai Genesis puts the reverse over left and up from first, so if you go a little bit too hard on the shifter, you're going to engage that lockout. It's going to be very difficult to engage second gear. And I mentioned Hyundai because this transmission, if I'm not mistaken, is the exact one you used to get in the old Hyundai before the Genesis brand even existed as its own thing, the Genesis Coupe. And when I drove that car years ago, I remember thinking how unspecial and unmiraculous that manual transmission felt. And here it kind of just feels the same. The clutch is kind of heavy and it has a very weird bite point. So I don't love shifting gears in this car like I do in other manual transmission cars. I just got done driving the Honda Civic Si last week, and the clutch and gearbox combination of that was just so much slicker and more fun than this. This gears, they're just kind of mushy. I don't get that same sense of pleasure from rowing through it. And the whole reason you buy a manual transmission instead of the automatic is not because it's faster. They're actually slower and less fuel efficient. You're gonna lose some MPG with this guy. It only gets 18 in the city and 28 on the highway compared to 22 and 30 if you get the automatic. In fact, this is almost drinks fuel at the same rate as the V6. So you don't buy it for any of those reasons. You buy it because it's fun, but I'm just not feeling the fun here, guys. And I am the perfect customer. I am the ideal 4% of Genesis 2.0T customers who go and buy one of these cars. And I'm just not loving it. I think that I would honestly rather have either this engine, the 4-cylinder with the automatic, or I would definitely rather have the more powerful V6 option, which is automatic only. Now, Genesis has packaged the manual transmission well. I will give them that. They know that if you are getting this transmission, you are an enthusiast. You want some features, but you don't want others. So you're gonna get Brembo brakes, a limited slip differential, you're gonna get the nicer 19-inch wheels and a sport exhaust. That's all great, but they don't saddle you with the most basic spec interior. You get memory seats, heated and ventilation, aluminum trim, you get LED headlights, you get the 15-speaker Lexicon audio system. That all comes as part of the manual option, which costs $38,500. So I think that is a great price. Even with destination, you're gonna be under $40,000 with the manual 4-cylinder car. So pricing great, content great, but then they just didn't focus on the actual thing that people want, which is the manual transmission. The G70 is an excellent car, I think, with the possible exception of the Alfa Romeo Giulia, which is also amazing to drive. This is one of the best compact luxury sedans for drivers. I just would get it with an automatic. So that was the 2020 Genesis G70. Now I want to start off by saying that I love this car. I love how it drives, I love how it feels, the chassis and all of that good stuff. Now there are some shortcomings here. The interior doesn't feel that special, and in the back and in the trunk, it's just not that big. Look for a 2021 model year to fix some of the problems I had with the not so special interior, or to get a better deal on this 2020 model if you can find a leftover. Now let's talk about that manual transmission option, because that's going to be a main focus of this video. There are no other competitors that you can get with a manual transmission. If you want a manual, you're gonna have to step down to a mainstream option, maybe like a Golf GTI or a Honda Accord. This does feel like a step up from those vehicles dynamically, because of course it is rear-wheel drive, and I love the content that Hyundai has put in this car. Brembo brakes, limited slip differential, sport exhaust. They really have nailed what a manual transmission enthusiast actually wants in a car, but then they didn't nail it on the transmission itself. The clutch is heavy, the engagement is not that great, and the transmission itself just isn't notchy and fun. The reason why you buy a manual transmission car over an automatic is because you want to enjoy it more, and I just didn't enjoy this more than I would with an automatic. If I were going to buy a Genesis G70, I would get the V6 with the automatic, followed by the 4-cylinder with the automatic, and then unfortunately this guy would be the last Genesis I would buy. I just think this car is better with the automatic.
We really hope you've enjoyed this video on the 2020 Genesis G70. For more information on this car, check the link in the description below for more information over on CarBuzz.com. And if you really enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button. That helps us a whole lot, and hit the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. I'll see you next time.